Hey everyone, this is podcast Chats with Chels number 9, and this one happened to be a coincidence. Ryan just happened to show up at my work for the second time in like a week, so it was fate. So this is Ryan Lancaster.
Hi everybody.
And he is doing an awesome project called the $1 Million Bus. So he is visiting us today from
Kelowna, British Columbia.
Kelowna, British Columbia. So we're not going to hold being from the West Coast against him here because he's doing so many cool things.
East and West are the coolest parts of Canada.
Right? It's the middle we have to, yeah.
They're cool. They're cool.
No, just kidding. So, you want to tell us a little bit about what the $1 Million Bus is?
Yeah, of course. So the $1 Million Bus is an initiative I started to jumpstart community impact projects. Projects that are small grassroots initiatives, people that are trying to do something positive in their community but are struggling with resources, they're struggling with awareness, they're struggling with marketing, and they're struggling with funds. So the idea is we take an old school bus that we've converted into a mobile home / office. I quit my job and sold my house and invested my life savings into this bus, and we've been traveling across Canada selling off the outside of the bus in 1-inch squares, so people put their names and logos and pictures of them and their cat on the outside of the bus.
Do you have a picture of a cat?
I do have a picture of a cat. Just a cat. And we donate the funds back to the projects that we're fundraising for.
So obviously you were inspired to do this. You saw a need.
Yeah.
So how did that come? How did the idea come about?
Well, I wanted to do something more purposeful with my life. I had kind of actually fallen into a depression, just working the 9-to-5 grind and kind of just struggling with purpose and realizing that year over year I was kind of procrastinating my life, and that indecision had essentially become my decision, right? So I did a project last year called Scale My Life, which was essentially to take back control of my life, and it was 12 big lofty life goals, everything from live on a budget of $250 for an entire month to be better at budgeting, to cook something new every single day for an entire month, to learn to swim and swim across the Okanagan Lake, which is not a small lake, and so which I actually thought I was going to die trying to do because I couldn't swim from like here across the room. So yeah, so everything in a month, just to like give myself like a hard deadline on trying to get things that were important to me back under control. And at the end of the year, I did a challenge called a charity challenge, which was 12 charities that I would work with over the month of December. And I connected with a lot of really cool initiatives, and I found that a lot of them were struggling with these issues of resources and awareness. And so yeah, my finished that year, and I wanted to do something more and continue this progression and towards a better life. And the $1 Million Bus sort of just came from that. I wanted to travel across Canada, and I wanted to make it a purposeful journey. I didn't have any money or resources to get a bus and do this project, so I put out on social media that I was going to try and trade from a small $2 button all the way up to a bus that I could travel across Canada in. And in 5 trades and 6 weeks, I managed to hustle my way from a button to a tea set to to a camera to an electric scooter to a Sea-Doo to a bus. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Did you get to ride the Sea-Doo, or did you?
I did actually. It was in the middle of February. I kept saying so when I traded for the electric scooter for the Sea-Doo. The Sea-Doo ended up having a broken starter and a bunch of problems, and so I actually thought that that the whole thing was basically over. And I put it on social media that I was basically screwed, and that I needed to figure out how trade down or something. And then this lady reached out and said, if you can find somebody to fix it, I will find you the money. And she crowdfunded us the money for a new starter. And so a volunteer marine mechanic stepped forward, put in a new starter, and I kept saying, like, if we get the Sea-Doo fixed, I will ride this in the middle of February in the Okanagan Lake. So never having ridden a Sea-Doo before, I borrowed a wetsuit and I went out dodging ice drifts and logs in the middle of February. And it was a ton of fun. And then actually that same day, somebody tagged me in a post about the bus. And then I went down and randomly the guy was actually leaving to go to Alaska and was going mushroom picking up there. And he could use a Sea-Doo to bomb along the rivers and get mushrooms. And so traded me for a bus.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Ultimately, we ended up trading that bus for another bus, and that's the bus that we have here in St. John's. And it's been 2 months on the road and a really, really amazing journey.
Well, I have this kitty bitty cat,
so... Who wants to trade?
Yeah.
You never know what this could turn into.
Exactly. Like something super, super amazing.
You can have the first one.
So it sounds like you are pretty good at setting goals and, you know, achieving them. So what kind of advice would you give to someone looking to start, you know, a project, I guess, a little bit like yours or a lot like yours or just a big adventure? What's that first step?
Well, the first step is to, you know, obviously, you know, write down what it is that you want to do and why you want to do it. And then the goal might seem insane. It might seem like this crazy, you know, there's no way I could ever accomplish it kind of thing, but I think when you break it down into micro goals, those small steps can really lead to big things. Like I was stuck in this depression and this rut in my life, and I felt like there was no escape. I had this job that was a good job, but it didn't fulfill me. You know, I had a lifestyle that just I felt trapped in, and so I couldn't just, you know, quit my job and change everything overnight. But what I could do was take small actions, and those small actions, even though they didn't have a specific destination, they just one thing led to another thing, which kept, you know, that positive snowball going. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm in St. John's, the other side of the country, living in a bus. So yeah, so there's it's really amazing to me that we as people can, like, what we can accomplish if we just, you know, take one step forward. And like, failure is an option. You will fail. I've failed lots on this project and other projects, and it is a real kick in the pants, but I think it's what you learn from that, and how you can, if you can be humble, have perspective, and then how you can build that into becoming more successful in the future, right?
I guess a huge common theme with a lot of the guests is, you know, they've had the same feelings as you, and as an entrepreneur myself who has left the regular job, you know, what's the point that you say, okay, like, or I guess what was your point that you're like, I need to do something new, like, this is enough?
Well, it was a lot of things, I guess, all kind of culminating together. I lost 3 friends rather tragically in the summer of 2015, and that was kind of what sent me into my depression, and what ended up forcing me to try and take action with my life. And I, at a certain point, I realized that I had to go all in on it, otherwise it was never going to happen, right? And so I think it's just one of those things where if you can start making some forward momentum, I don't know if you just, you know, decided one day, woke up and you were like, screw it, I'm doing it, right? But for me, it was something that I was able to build confidence in. I was able to build skills and resources and community connections. And then when I did step out there, I wasn't stepping out alone, right? So, but a lot of times that, you know, that step off point seems so far away. So it was just about what can I do to start heading in that direction, right? Yeah,
exactly. So I guess, you know, from building up to, you know, living in a bus,
yes,
there must have been some pretty awesome experiences and moments that you've had traveling all the way across Canada.
Yeah.
So, you know, what are some of those favorite moments that you've had from your experience on the road?
You know, honestly, I would say 2 things have really been the most impactful for me. One is the amazing and inspiring projects that we've found across Canada. I've been so fortunate to have an amazing team, a videographer and a community manager, and they have just made this trip like unbelievable. So crazy loves company, and if you're crazy enough, people will come be crazy with you. And then the other thing is just amazing people that have reached out to help, especially in like the most dire times. I think we can often like get in our own heads and feel like we're alone and that no one's there to help us, right? But that's when, if you put yourself out there, people will come out of the woodworks. We've broken down in thunder showers, we've lost windshield wipers, we've run out of gas. People have invited us into their homes. People have come out in the middle of the night and worked for hours in the rain and then refused to take payment because they just were like, you know what, if you're doing something positive, that's payment enough for me. Even here in St. John's, we're coming into town, and like 11,000 kilometers, like 78 days I think it was on the road, and all of a sudden our battery monitor was like and started beeping, and so obviously there was a problem with our alternator, and it just so happened that a local transportation company, Parson and Sons, reached out days earlier and were like, hey, if you need anything while you're in town, just let us know. And I was like, you know what, I probably won't need anything, we're probably pretty good. And then all of a sudden I was like, hey man, I need help. And he came, bailed us out of the breakdown. He's like fixed our bus multiple times, and he's offered us a place to store the bus over the winter. And this is just all just because he wants to help. And I think that's a really powerful thing, that people are good, and that people all across Canada will take strangers into their homes and lend a hand to people trying to do something really good, right?
Yeah, so like one of the things that I immediately noticed when you came to St. John's and you stopped in here at Common Ground for the first time last week, you have like such a presence when you come in. You're so modest.
Yeah.
You like catch the attention of the people who come in, and you're just so friendly and out there. And I guess that would be like something that you almost have to be going across Canada.
Yeah.
But for someone who's maybe a little bit nervous to get out of their shell, what would you recommend to them?
I would say, it's a really, really nerve-wracking thing. I may seem like I'm super extroverted, but a lot of times I'm very introverted and like have a hard time. But I guess, further to my earlier point, I think it's not as scary as everybody makes it seem. I know like it's rejection and the fear of putting yourself out there, but it's when you put yourself out there that you can meet the most amazing people, and B, you'll find the greatest amount of help. So find a medium that works for you, whether it's writing, whether it's video, podcasting, or, going to social events and shaking hands with complete strangers if you have the balls to do that.
Getting nervous just thinking about it.
Yeah, but like, if you just put yourself out there even just a little bit, it's amazing what'll come back.
Well, that is lots of great advice, and thank you so much for this impromptu podcast and giving us some of your Friday afternoon. And you are heading back across the country in the spring?
Yes. So I'm here for the winter, which I'm very excited about.
Have you been here in the winter?
Everybody says that. I don't know. I'm excited to be here for the winter time. So so I am flying back on Tuesday back home, and then I'll be back in early January. I'll be here all winter, and then we're going to launch a fundraiser for a local project here. I'm very excited about that, and then work our way back across Canada, fundraising for the projects we found along the way, and hopefully making a positive impact. So if anybody wants to buy a square on the bus, $10, and support local projects across Canada.
That's awesome. So coming soon to a city near you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in.